What's up, everyone? It's Bones here. As we continue our journey through Age of Overlords, I'll be showcasing 5 different ways that you can use the new Horus cards while giving a brief overview at the end of each combo. But first, if you're a fan of in-depth combo videos, new set coverage, and occasional fun stuff that we like to do on the channel, then open up the Pharaonic Sarcophagus and unleash the Horus beatsticks upon those thumbs up and subscribe buttons. Now, the first card that we have here is Imseti, Glory of Horus, and it reads, if you control King Sarcophagus, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. You can only special summon Imseti, Glory of Horus once per turn this way. You can only use each of the following effects of Imseti, Glory of Horus once per turn. You can send 2 cards from your hand to the graveyard, including this card, as a cost. Add 1 King Sarcophagus from your deck to your hand. Then you can draw 1 card. If another card you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, while this card is in your monster zone, except during the damage step, you can send 1 card on the field to the graveyard. Now, as you can see, this is a engine that helps you get cards out of the hand, which revitalizes some of these graveyard strategies, as you're seeing with Orcus Nightmare here in my hand. And we're going to start this one by activating the Imseti so that we can send the Orcus Nightmare in order to get our King Sarcophagus. We'll also be able to draw 1, and the King Sarcophagus reads, Horus monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects, unless they target them. You can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard, send 1 Horus monster from your deck to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of King Sarcophagus up to 4 times per turn, which isn't really as crazy as it sounds, though there are definitely plays to be made with that. And once per turn, at the start of the damage step, if your Horus monster battles an opponent's monster, you can send that opponent's monster to the graveyard. Now, one cool thing about this entire archetype is the follow-up that you get from some of these sends, the way that you're able to keep on reviving the Horus monsters as long as you have the Sarcophagus face up on the field is really nice. So we're going to activate the King Sarcophagus here, and we're going to be able to pitch a card or send a card, as we'll then send a Happy. And this is another new Horus card that we'll be getting. It reads, if you control King Sarcophagus, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. You can only special summon Happy once per turn this way. If another card you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, while this card is in your monster zone, except during the damage step, you can target 2 cards that are banished and or in either graveyard, either add them to the hand or shuffle them into the deck. You can only use this effect of Happy once per turn. And as you can see, this is just a bunch of level 8s that you can end up reviving on your own turn, giving you easy rank 8 access. And there will be some decks that want to play more names, but there will be other decks with a lot of graveyard reliance where you can just play 2 names and end up going into your zombie vampire. Now, I don't have an opponent, so I really won't use its effect because I can't mill from both decks here, but just consider that a bonus to everything else that I'm going to do, because I just want to show them the bare minimum, as then you can add on to whatever I do with whatever you mill. So we're going to then be able to send the wand, as we're going to revive the Orcus Nightmare. We'll then be able to go into our Galatea after you, of course, use the zombie vampire's mill effect, and then use the effect of the Galatea, and this will get you into your Babel, or it can get you into the Orcus Crescendo. In an archetype like this, where Orcus alone can get you some follow-up for the next turn, having cards like the Horus cards in order to revive them and have big attack points to threaten your opponent while also having the added protection of the King Sarcophagus be what makes this deck shine. As usually in these days, the engines that you're going to be pairing with Horus will be able to create enough of their own board to not have to rely on just the Horus cards to get you there. Now, for the second combo, I do want to point out, I feel like there's ups and downs about this engine, so take it with an asterisk. I feel like if you're playing the Horus engine in tier, you want to play more discards, or rather more sends that benefit from being in the graveyard and don't really care too much about being in the hand. So we're going to get our Sharon. We're then going to be able to send the Agido along with the Horus, and you'll see that again, I'm not going to get the mills here off of Agido, so whatever you do mill will be a bonus for you in a scenario like this, and that's what makes the Ishizu cards really nice to pair with the Horus cards. So we'll get a draw as we do get a Rhino Heart. We'll activate the King Sarcophagus, and how I'm going to do things can change depending on how your turn plays out, because you're going to be getting hit with hand traps at some point. So I'm just going to send the Happy here, revive the Glory of Horus and the Happy so that we can go into our zombie vampire. Again, I won't do any additional milling. Whatever you get from the mill and special summon is just a bonus at that point, as we're now going going to activate the Sharon. We're going to get a mill 5 as we're going to send the tier cache. You'll see that I'm also going to use the Soliacus Chainlink 2 here. That can change depending on the situation that you're in. Same thing with me getting the Havness. If you're going first and you want to play it safe, you can get the Havness. If you're going second and you want damage, you can get the tier limit cache Tira so that you can special summon that out and get even more mills. So we're then going to be able to get more mills as we're going to special summon out another copy of Mali as we do hit a Mali, and then we're going to link away into our Cross Sheep. We'll then normal summon the Rhino Heart, use its effect which will allow us to send the Merly, use the effect of the Merly in order to fuse into our Mud Dragon, and then we can trigger the Cross Sheep in order to revive the Agido, giving us another level 4. So we'll now go into the Redoer, and at this point, you have different options that you can do. I'm going to use the effect of the Redoer in order to fuse off of the Sharon effect after we end up linking away Mud Dragon and the Agido into SP Little Knight. And SP Little Knight is a card that reads, it takes 2+ effect monsters or 2 effect monsters. If this card is link summoned using a Fusion, Synchro, Exceed, and or Link monster as material, you can target one card on the field or in the graveyard, banish it. Also, your monsters cannot attack directly for the rest of this turn. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can target 2 face-up monsters on the field, including at least one monster you control. Banish both until the end phase. You can only use each effect of SP Little Knight once per turn, and this is just a really nice way to play around Nib. But I also would like to point out, as I said, your board can vary depending on what mills you get from Zombie Vampire, what special summon you get from it. You also have the mills from Agido. There's going to be different matchups where you just may want to make a Dweller instead of the SP Little Knight. So we're now going to use the effect of the Sharon in order to get our Dragos Tapelia, and then we're going to go into the end phase where we'll bring back the Redoer and end our turn on this. Now for this next one we have Volcanics, and this is a more gas variant where you're not going to have a lot of space for going second cards because as you can see the Sprite, Volcanic, and Runic stuff already took a lot of space recently, and adding the Horus stuff to it just adds even more to that. So we're going to draw phase, special summon out Hugin, and the reason that we're doing this is because we opened the Volcanic Shell and the Sprite Blue. If you didn't open a Sprite name, then you probably would just want to add the Fountain, but because we have the Sprite Blue and the Volcanic Shell, we can just do so much here. So I'm just going to go for the Hugin, pitch the Shell, getting ourselves the Fountain. We'll then be able to go into the main phase where we're going to special summon out the Blue. The Blue can then get us out the Red or Carrot, depending on what you want to play around. I think it's safer to play around hand traps right now as far as monsters go, because Imperm's like the only spell trap that is doing that right now. So we're going to use the effect of the Shell in order to get ourselves another copy of Shell. This gives us the send for the Glory of Horus, and that'll get us the King Sarcophagus, as we can also draw one. We get the Blaze Accelerator, the new one, as we'll then use the effect of Shell to get ourselves another copy of it. And now we can add the King Sarcophagus, as we're then going to use its effect in order to pitch a copy of Happy, and use its effect again, as we're going to pitch the Blaze Accelerator in order to send our next new one. Blessing of Horus. I'm not going to pronounce the first name of this one, but if you control a King Sarcophagus, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. You can only special summon Blessing of Horus once per turn this way. Gains 1200 attack and defense for each Horus monster you control. If another card you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, while this card is in your monster zone, except during the damage step, you can draw cards equal to the number of monsters with different names in your main monster zone. You can only use this effect of Blessing of Horus once per turn. Now, we're going to continue our turn, I believe, by special summoning out all the Horus monsters, and because we play 3 names, we're going to be able to go into our Coach King, and this will get us into 3 draws. So something important with the Glory of Horus stuff, or with the Horus stuff, is the fact that you want to know how to construct your deck based on the things that it may want. If you're playing a heavy graveyard-reliant deck and want less bricks, then Zombie Vampire is always going to be better. But if you're playing a 60 card like this, where you can afford to put in the extra name and just get into more draws, which can potentially get you into more Runic quick plays and stuff like that, then Coach King just makes obvious sense. So we're going to use the effect of the Coach King in order to get another draw. We're going to use its effect to get a draw again for a Slumber, as we do get another Runic quick play. We'll then be able to get ourselves the Sprite Starter as we draw that off the top of the deck, and that's a really nice draw because it means that we don't really have to go into Gigantic this turn, and you'll see what I mean by that as we're going going to activate the Slumber, protecting the red, and then we're going to get some banishes as we're going to use the Fountain in order to get the draw 2, and we're going to get Talents plus Trooper, and this is pretty nice as we're now able to use the effect of the Fire Ejection, which will send the Rimfire, and now we can use the Fire Ejection to get that token on the opponent's board, as we'll then be able to activate the Rimfire, and this will be able to get ourselves the Volcanic Blaze Accelerator. We'll use the Blaze Accelerator to special summon out the Trooper. The Trooper can then get its on-summon effect to search the Rocket. We'll then normal summon the Rocket, as we're going to use its effect in order to add ourselves Blaze Accelerator Reload, as we'll then be able to use the effect of the Trooper, get another token on our opponent's board, and that will be important as we're going to pop the first one with the Volcanic Blaze Accelerator, sending the Rimfire again, and the Rimfire will now be able to send the Volcanic Emperor to the graveyard. From here we'll be able to use the effect of the Reload, and this will send the Scatter Shot to the graveyard, as now we can pop the token and get more damage on our opponent, as we'll be able to send our other copies of Scatter Shot to the graveyard. So from here we're going to leave them at about 5,500 life points, I believe, and we'll be able to continue to make a bigger board off of this since we have the bodies. And as I said, we're not going to go into Gigantic, so I'm doing something a little bit different here as we're going to go into our IP Masquerena and then go into our SP Little Knight, keep our Sprite Red on board because we have the starter, so the minute that we use the red effect on our opponent's turn, we can just use the starter to bring out the carrot and go on from there. But we're now going to use the effect of the SP Little Knight, and we're going to banish the Rocket, and we're doing this so that we can get more damage on our opponent since we have the Emperor in the graveyard. We're going to use the effect of the Emperor. Do keep in mind you don't want to banish all 3 shells, keep one in the graveyard so that when you get your set off of the Volcanic Emperor, you can just set yourself up nicely if it lives to your opponent's end phase. But you'll see that we're going to get 2,500 life points of damage, leaving the opponent at 3k life points. Now we can set our Volcanic Inferno, as we'll then be able to set the Sprite Starter, and this gives us a pretty strong position going into our opponent's turn where we have the Destruction, which will give us a draw off of the Fountain. Every time your opponent special summons a monster, they take 500 damage, meaning they're limited to 6 summons, and technically 5 because of the Volcanic Inferno damage as well. Then you also have the ability to play around something like Dark Ruler, where even if you do get Dark Rulered, you can bring out your carrot, or even another copy of red if you do play that, and at least have something. I know that it's not ideal to get Dark Rulered in this position, but it's the fact that it could be worse. Now for this next one, we have Infernity, and I think that this is a really cool one, along with Ogdoadic, and I won't be really doing Ogdoadic in this video just because I want to make a video on that once we get the new support cards. I'm going to start this one by activating the Diabellstar Quick Play, the Sinful Spoils Hunter Fiend. It reads, add 1 Diabellstar monster from your deck or graveyard to the hand. During your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one of your Sinful Spoils spell traps that is banished or in your graveyard except Hunter Fiend. Place it on the bottom of the deck, then draw 1 card. You can only use each effect of Hunter Fiend once per turn. And the really nice thing about both of these engines, the Horus and the Diabellstar stuff, for Infernity is the fact that you just get things out of your hand. So we're going to go on to the main phase where we're going to activate the Imisty. We're going to pitch the Stygian Patrol, and we'll be able to get ourselves our King's Sarcophagus, or the Pharaonic Sarcophagus. Activate the Sarcophagus, as we'll be able to then get Ascend for the Happy, as we'll then be able to use the effect of the Diabellstar, which will pitch the Void Apocalypse. And I forgot to read the Diabellstar. It reads, you can special summon this card from your hand by sending one other card from your hand or field to the graveyard. You can only special summon Diabellstar the Dark Witch once per turn this way. You can only use each of the following effects of Diabellstar once per turn. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can set 1 Sinful Spoils spell trap directly from your deck. If this card is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard during your opponent's turn, you can send 1 card from your hand or field to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon this card. Now, instead of getting the trap card, I will be getting another copy of the Quick Play spell, and the reason that I'm doing this is because we're going to end up using the Diabellstar and the Horus bodies as just link material, which is another cool thing that you can do with this deck, as we're going to be able to use the Void, or the Infernity Archfiend, to get ourselves the Infernity Necromancer. We'll then go into our IP Masquerena, normal summon the Necromancer, as we'll change it to defense position with its on-summon effect. We'll then use the effect of the Necromancer to revive the Archfiend, use the effect of the Archfiend, which will net us a search for the Return of the Reaper, and we'll then be able to go into our Appaloosa, activate the Return of the Reaper to bring back the Necromancer. The Necromancer will then revive the Archfiend, as we'll then use the effect of the Archfiend in order to get a search for the launcher. And you can see where all these free bodies off the Horus stuff, the Diabellstar stuff, gets you into your board easier, which is just really nice. So we'll bring back the Happy now, activate the Void launcher, or the Infernity launcher, and then bring back our Necromancer along with the Archfiend, as we'll then be able to use the effect of the Archfiend. This will get us the Patriarch, as we're then going to special summon the Patriarch, go into our number 60, use the effect of number 60, detaching 2 in order to get the special summon back of the Archfiend, use the effect of the Archfiend, which will get us into Infernity Barrier. We'll then be able to go into our Cerberus, set our barrier so that we can use the effect of the Necromancer, reviving the Archfiend. We'll then be able to use the effect of the Archfiend for either another barrier, or you can get Infernity Break, and then we'll go into our Nightmare Phoenix. You can technically go into SP Little Knight depending on the situation here as well, but we're then going to end up setting the Infernity Break, and just like that, we have a full board. Now for this final Phantom Knights, and this is kind of a weird one in my opinion, just because playing Zombie Vampire when you're playing Phantom Knights and potentially facing a tier limit player is just a really bad scenario. If you happen to mill something like Keldo and Mudora, you're not going to have a fun time. So I'm just going to start here by activating Rite of Aramesir, and we're going to get ourselves the token along with the Fateful Adventure. Normal summon our Greaves, as we'll be able to get ourselves the copy of Draco back. We'll then use the effect of the Fateful Adventure. This will get us the Griffin Rider, and then we'll pitch the Draco back, as this will give us the ability to equip it to the token, activate the Griffin Rider so that we can get it on board, giving us that Omni Negate, activate the Glory of Horus, pitching the Ancient Cloak, so you can see where that's obvious synergy there. And then from here we can activate our King Sarcophagus, or Pharaonic Sarcophagus, as we do draw into a Boots, and we don't really care about that since we're just going to end up sending it anyways. And then we're going to use the effect of the Cloak to get back the Boots, as we'll then be able to special summon the Boots, and we did get that Boots from deck, I just mean get back another copy of it so that we can get that extra level 3. But we're then going to be able to go into our Levier. Now this is where I want to point out that with the Horus cards you may want to play Phantom Knights a little bit differently, and I say that because if you go directly into Cherubini here, you're doing your Burning Abyss plays, and I don't think that you quite need to do that with the Horus accessibility now, where you can just get the extra bodies to get into Rusty that way, seeing as the Imseti, or however you call it, is a dark monster. So we're now going to be able to revive the Ancient Cloak off of the Levier. We'll be able to use the effect of the Boots in order to get our Shade Brigandine. So this is just another body that can get you into a Link monster, as we're going to go into our Masquerena, and like this we have our Rusty access. So we'll use the effect of Rusty now, which will allow us to send the Torn Scales and get ourselves a set for a Fogblade, as we're then going to be able to revive the Imseti. We can then revive the Happy, and from here you can do something like go into a Zombie Vampire, or you can go into any other rank 8 like Hope. You can go into the P Little Knight, depending on what you're playing into. You can also make something like a Hope Harbinger, but we're also going to set the Forbidden Droplet here. We'll be ending our turn on that. Now to end this video, I would also like to go over the 2 last cards that we'll be getting, and this one is AGOV of Horus. It reads, if you control King Sarcophagus, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. You can only special summon AGOV of Horus once per turn this way. If another card you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, while this card is in your monster zone except during the damage step, you can activate this effect. This turn, your opponent's monsters cannot target Horus monsters for attacks. Also, your opponent cannot target Horus monsters on the field with card effects. You can only use this effect of AGOV of Horus once per turn. Trap card, Canopic Protector, reads, once per turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect, special summon 1 Horus monster from your hand or graveyard, but for the rest of this turn, you cannot special summon monsters with the same original name by the effect of Canopic Protector. If this card is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, you can set this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use this effect of Canopic Protector once per turn. And these are 2 cards that I really just don't think we'll be seeing play in all of the Horus stuff. You end up seeing, unless one's playing like a random pure version of it. I guess the last things that I would like to say before I wrap up the video are that when it comes to the Horus engine, I like the idea of playing stuff like Fenrir with them. Same thing with the Diabellstar stuff if you can, depending on what you are playing, because the ability to have all these small engines that get you into a disruption, like we have the trap card here, Sinful Spoils of Betrayal. Sylvia, it reads send one Diabellstar monster from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard, then target one face-up card on the field, negate its effects. Your opponent activates a card or effect in response to the activation of your Diabellstar monster's effect or Sinful Spoil spell trap card or effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard, negate that opponent's effect. You can only use one Sinful Spoils of Betrayal Sylvia once per turn, and only once that turn. What I'm basically getting at is that this is an effect Veiler, Fenrir is a monster disruption, and then Hope Harbinger is spell negate that you can end up getting off of the Horus engine, which can at least give you a mini board that still be particularly strong against some monster heavy decks. For everyone who's made it this far, I'd like to thank you for watching and for the 600 plus subs. I truly appreciate your support, and now that we've monetized the channel, giving us access to supers and memberships means that more awesome stuff is on the horizon. To get the channel membership, just click on the description below and there will be a link that takes you there. You'll also notice a free Discord link that I've made for us too. If you want to support me as a content creator, even if you can't donate supers or get a membership for the channel, clicking on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons help a lot too. For those wondering, I do plan on making updates to the channel as the support on the channel grows. Anyways, I hope to see you on the next one. It's Bones, signing out.